Well, I just made mention that our retiring mayor took his gavel, I guess, so we have no way to open the meeting officially. All right, I will call our April meeting of Central Oklahoma Transportation and Parking Authority to order. I'd like to say one thing. We had the staff had our open house of the modern streetcar Friday, and I just want to congratulate everybody. It was a great event. We had a huge turnout. I just was really shocked when I drove up, but they handled the parking well. They handled the lines and getting everybody through the streetcar. And I also need to mention that I guess I've come down on the list. When Mayor Norick first took office, we went to Florida to be on the USS Oklahoma City nuclear sub. And I have a picture of me piloting a nuclear submarine. And then Larry took a picture of me piloting the streetcar. So I said, I think I've come down a long way. But anyway, it was a great job. I appreciate everybody's effort. The food truck, the T-shirts, a tour of the streetcars, and I think Oklahoma City's, they are excited and they're in for a real treat when we get this done. So, all right, with that said, do we have any citizens to be heard? If not, I would have approval of our minutes of our March meeting, unless there are any changes any of the trustees have.
Move approval.
Second.
All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. Got several items on our consent docket. Unless any of the trustees have any that they'd like individual discussion, Jason would like to make mention on item F, just a brief explanation of that item.
Yes, so item F is approving an agreement with ONG for installation of 1,250 feet of 12-inch natural gas main along with 100 feet of service line and a meter. And of course, this is in preparation of our CNG fueling facility. What I wanted to make note of is on the memo, we have an estimated cost there of $165,293. You'll notice there's no source of funds listed. And again, just as a point of clarification, that is the cost of the project that ONG has estimated, but ONG is paying for those improvements. So there'll be no cost to Cotpa for that additional gas line. So just wanted to make that clarification.
All right, thank you. Any other questions? If not, I'd have approval of our consent docket.
Second.
All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. We've got 4 items on for individual consideration. Item A is approval of final plans and bidding documents for our CNG fueling station facility, and authorize the administrator to advertise and release the bidding documents.
Yeah, so kind of goes without saying, we are pretty excited about this project. Approval of final plans and bidding documents for our Embark CNG fueling station at our 2000 South May Avenue facility. Basically this project continues implementing the Board of Trustees' goal of transitioning our fleet to alternative fuels, mainly CNG. And as we know, we've continued to add to the number of CNG buses we have in our fleet. It's obviously at this point necessary to construct our own CNG fueling facility. And as you know, this is a project we've been working on for quite a while. We had Wendell WD Architecture come in and do a kind of a needs analysis for us. As you'll recall, in December of 2016, the board approved an amendment to the contract which gave them the go-ahead for final design. We've been working on design since that time, not without a couple of issues. One was mitigating some floodplain issues, and we've successfully been able to address those. The other one was passing the FTA environmental process. But at this point, we have completed that design. We've got that environmental okay from the FTA, and we are ready to bid the project. I will also mention that the design is, of course, for the entire facility, everything from the driveways and concrete to access the dispensers to the compressors, the canopy, the storage containers, the controls. So it's the full facility that is being bid. Also, I would mention, if you'll notice on the memo, the estimated cost for the project is $3.75 million. That number comes from the initial report that Wendell performed. If you'll recall, in January, Wendell, our A&E, was here to present a summary of their preliminary report, and that estimate they shared with us at that time was closer to $4.2 million, and the $4.2 million included all of the contingencies as well as some anticipated additional costs for the floodplain mitigation. So with all that said, just to say, we're looking at a range there, as we typically do with these capital projects, and we'll have a firm number once the project is bid. And then lastly, just as an information item, Wendell is also working with us on designing some improvements to our maintenance facility, and we anticipate bringing another item to the Board of Trustees for consideration next month, approving plans and specs for improvements to the maintenance facility. So with that, I'll be glad to answer any questions on this item.
Any questions? If not, then I'd have a motion to approve item A.
So moved.
All in favor? Opposed? If you allow me, item B, we're going to have a presentation on that, so if it's okay, I'll go ahead and get item C and D, and then we'll come back to B since we're going to have a presentation on that. So item C is a resolution authorizing the administrator of Cotpa to approval of subcontractors to the Herzog Transit Services contract for the operation of the streetcar.
Yeah, so with this resolution, really what this resolution is going to do is provide us operational flexibility by authorizing the administrator to approve subcontractors for use in delivering operations and maintenance of the streetcar. In the current contract between Cotpa and Herzog, I believe it's section 6.3, it basically spells out that Herzog is not able to use any subcontractors to deliver streetcar service without the approval of Cotpa, with the exception of certain subcontracted services, and those subcontracted services are spelled out in the contract. For example, in the contract, subcontracted services for maintenance of the traction power substations, the overhead catenary wire, even some landscaping and janitorial services. Those are all spelled out in the contract. As we get closer to operations, what we realize is we can't possibly anticipate every subcontracted service we might need. A real good example of that just came up recently, and that is as we go through our re-railing exercise as part of our preparation for operations, we're going to need a crane to re-rail the streetcar. Well, that's a subcontracted service. It's not specifically called out in the contract, but obviously we'll need those services. So again, this item that we're asking the board to take action on will simply give the administrator the ability to approve those subcontracted services. Now, at the same time, there's an allowance, a dollar amount allowance in the contract for those services. If we exceed the dollar amount, then that will come to the board for approval.
All right, thank you. Any questions? Not. A motion to approve item C.
Second.
All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. Item D is approved plans and specifications for the Santa Fe parking garage, white box, and tenant improvements, and authorize the administrator to advertise for bids.
So another project we've been working on for some time now with UCO and Beck Design. You may remember back in December, actually, both UCO and Beck were here to present a summary of the preliminary report to the trust. This project is mainly for tenant space improvements. As we know, UCO desires to rent or lease the remaining space in the Santa Fe parking garage, the tenant space that is. With that lease arrangement, we've agreed to improve and remodel the space to meet their needs for their plans moving forward. So with this item, we'll be able to advertise for bids, begin the project. One thing I will clarify, if you'll notice on the estimated cost for the project, we have two parts listed there, a Part A and a Part B. Part A is actually some general garage improvements that we as the garage operator need to make. They range from anything from improvements to the stairwells to some roof repairs over the elevator towers. I believe there's some railing we need to replace. So that's what the Part A portion of that cost estimate is. And then the $2.6 million that you see there, that is the estimated cost really for basically the renovation. And when I say renovation, that's basically taking space that's been vacant for quite a while, demoing it, bringing it back to white box status, and tenant finishes. That is for the UCO, the space that UCO will lease. And then again, just finally as a reminder, we did receive a TIF allocation of approximately $1 million to help offset those costs that you see there, and generally that's reimbursed to Cotpa at the completion of the project. I'm glad to answer any questions.
All right, good, thank you. Any questions? If not, I'd have a motion to approve item D.
So moved. Second.
All in favor? Opposed? All right, item D is a resolution detailing public hearing regarding changes to Route 50 and schedule, addition of weeknight service to Route 22, qualification of reduced fare benefits based on age will increase from 65 to 60, eliminate the issuance of a fare change cards and fare boxes from fixed routes, and establish an existing fixed fare bus pass as universal pass, and establish a universal annual pass, and establish a downtown circulatory fare schedule. So I think we've got a presentation on that.
Good morning. Thank you for allowing us to conduct our public hearing this morning. This is the 6th meeting that we've had to review these changes with the public and allow public opportunity to make comments on that. We do have a few at the end of this presentation that would like to provide comments to the board regarding the changes that have been proposed. There are a few ways that individuals can provide official comments, and that is by attending meetings. They can also send it by email at embarcokokc.com, by mail, or submit it in writing at the Downtown Transit Center or to any one of our facilities. My clicker, it's not working. All right, if you'd progress that, thank you. And one more. All right, so one of the first changes that we were looking at that has been proposed was to modify the Route 50. The Route 50 currently operates in the downtown area and has had trouble doing so over the last few years, as we've seen in our ridership decline. A lot of that is because of being unable to maintain a specific route due to the number of detours. So one of the things that we'd like to do is also utilize this service to better supplement the upcoming streetcar coming up, but also to reflect the changes that have occurred in the downtown environment, and that is the increase in downtown housing and individuals living and working at the same time in our this service area. What we are proposing, in addition to a route realignment, is also modifying the schedule so it better aligns with the streetcar, but also makes it easier to understand. The very first part of the slide here shows you that the current route has a variety of different frequency levels for different days of the week and at different days and times of the week. What we are proposing to do is to unify the frequency across its entire service schedule, allowing individuals to more easily understand when the bus will be operating. We are proposing a Monday to Saturday, a single schedule of 6 a.m. to 11:30 p.m. every 30 minutes. This is the current route right now. In a little bit, we'll look at how this is a very similar route to our downtown streetcar that is forthcoming. What we'd like to do is use that to better serve some, I'm just going to stop trying, use that service to better serve those residents in the east part of downtown. If you'll progress that for me, I appreciate it. One more and another. All right, so the blue here represents what is being proposed for the new Route 50. This will better serve a big majority of some new hotels, as well as our East Bricktown development that's occurred. We'll also be adding more service to downtown housing in the Deep Deuce area, as well as major multifamily housing also there on the east side of downtown Oklahoma City. It'll continue to connect at the transit center, where it will make a vital connection to other night services that could occur throughout the week. Here's that new route aligned with what is forthcoming with the streetcar. And so what we're hoping to do is, again, help bring individuals closer to the streetcar so that they can make that trip a little easier. And then also at the same time, help connect them to those other services in the broader transit network. Another change that has been proposed would be to add weeknight service hours to Route 22. This would extend our service hours that currently end about 7 p.m. for Route 22 and extend those until midnight like our other night routes. So that would give us a total of one more, which would be 5 that we've not currently used or had before. This would be similar, that it had 60-minute service, and it would run Monday through Friday at that schedule. No changes to the route would be included at all. As with the service changes, it's important, as we have notated here, these are changes that have been proposed as our upcoming budget, and these changes are conditional upon those funds being able to be used that way. All right, we'll go on to the next change. So at this portion, we're going to be talking about a few changes to the way we collect fares. One outcome of our recent fare study and policy decisions that were made was to evaluate our overall structure and how we collect fares and what are opportunities in order to align our systems with other best practices and standards that we've seen around the country. One area where we were an outlier was where we provide reduced fare benefits at the age of 60 versus 65. So that is one that we're bringing to the public to help make a decision on. The age requirement would only be enacted when this occurs in July if it's approved. Anyone who is already receiving that benefit, that won't change. So if you're 60 today and you have already applied and received that reduced fare benefit, you will continue to receive that. We're not going to take that away. We're not proposing to take that away. And that would be true all the way up until July 28th, basically. So that would still allow everyone who's already receiving that fare reduction to continue to receive that. Another consideration is the elimination of fare change cards. Fare change cards have several implications, both for operations and for the customer. One thing that's important to note is that right now, if you were to board a bus and put a $5 bill in, you would not receive $1 in cash back or in coins. You would receive one of these cards here that says you have $1 value on it that can then be used towards other services, such as going to the transit center and applying it towards the purchase of another pass, or you can use it at the fare box itself. Problems have occurred operationally when we allow this ticket to go back into it and for it to be issued. We're seeing a number of holdups with our on-time performance as related to this even, and we're expecting that this will help us improve the ability to better maintain schedules and increase the time that people are boarding. It'll decrease that time, but increase our on-time performance. We also have seen that we're issuing a great number of these, and they're going unused. So there's an operational cost and maintenance association with that that we're looking at continuing to create more efficiencies and maximize our service schedule as best as possible through the elimination of this. With the Oklahoma City streetcar arriving in the near future, one of the things that we wanted to look at was our existing fare structure and our passes. Our fare current structure allows for a day pass, a 7-day pass, a monthly pass. What we'd like to do is kind of brand those in that they would also be inclusive of the streetcar coming forward. So that would mean our current day pass, monthly pass, 7-day pass, and then also the addition of an annual pass would give them all the benefits of fixed route embark bus service, as well as the Oklahoma City streetcar services and the downtown circulator, Route 50, that we were discussing earlier. They would receive all those benefits without additional costs. So they would pay their typical cost today for that pass, and they would continue to, they'd be able to receive their embark services plus the streetcar without an additional fare. Now, we do have a need to establish a downtown circulator fare that would be consistent for both that Route 50 and the streetcar. What has been proposed by our fare consultant was to provide a single trip fare for $1 per boarding. So each, just like with a bus, you pay $1.75 every time you board. Today, you would pay $1 every time you board Route 50 or the streetcar. The day pass for $3, a monthly pass for $32, and an annual pass for $384. All of the standard reduced fare benefits would apply to this as well. So that's a standard, and that means it would be half price for those. All right, with that, that concludes the changes that we have proposed. Be happy to answer any questions. I know we have a few that would like to speak to those, and they have filled out a comment card. And if you don't have any questions of me, I'll invite them up to speak.
Okay.
Can we speak after we hear from the...
Absolutely, that's your privilege.
Good morning, Board. It's not on. There we go. Good morning, Board members. My name is Jeremy Moses. I live on Southwestern Avenue. The reason I'm up here this morning is because I wanted to comment on the proposal to add nightside service for the Route 22. I recently took a trip on Greyhound back to Cincinnati, Ohio, which is where I formerly resided prior to my move here to Oklahoma City. What I discovered on trying to figure out how I would get to the Greyhound station was, of course, that there was no nightside service on the 22. I believe that there is a need for that to help people arriving on the Greyhound service between the hours of 7 p.m. and 11 p.m., or midnight, I should say, to make their way to their destinations around the Oklahoma City metro area. And I strongly believe that the proposal to add nightside service on the 22 is absolutely something that should be pursued. Thank you.
My name is Taylor Doe, and I live in Northeast Oklahoma City. Get to work in a lot of schools on the east side, and so I get to talk to a lot of my students as well as their families. And we talk a lot about how transit is very closely tied to employment. And so a lot of my students after school have trouble getting to and from work, as well as their parents in the evening, talking about picking up another shift in the evenings and different things like that. And so we have that conversation pretty frequently about how transportation and employment is so closely tied together. And so I just wanted to voice my support for keeping Route 22 open until midnight. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, any other comments? Any questions? All right.
I just want to say, just real quick, you're exactly right. I hear it from my students on the south side all the time. You know, middle school gets out at about 4 o'clock, and a lot of those kids go home to parents who are working second jobs, and they need that route, you know. And so I think having this route over here is a great next step to what Embark and Cotpa have already done with the other 4 routes. That, I just want you to know that when I cast that vote, I hear that. And I also hear what you're saying about getting to that Greyhound service. You're nowhere near the only person I've heard say that to me in the last 6 months. And so I really appreciate those comments as well. So thank you all for voicing those comments, and thank you all for bringing these recommendations to us.
Mr. Chairman, Michael, could you describe the comments or attendance feedback that was heard at the other public meetings?
Unfortunately, I wasn't prepared to have those numbers for you today. We'll put together a report that will have all of that information
Okay.
for you.
Great.
With all the comments that have been received and the notes from each meeting that was conducted. So you'll have that. But as these 2 gentlemen were also at the previous meetings, and we had others there as well
Okay.
with similar comments.
Thank you.
And then, Michael, sorry. I already spoke with Jason regarding this, but the change cards, I understand why it makes sense to eliminate those, both in terms of increasing frequency and the maintenance of those fare boxes, being worn down through the continuation of those, cards. I want to make sure, however, that, and Jason and I spoke about this, that similar to when we've done other changes to our service, like when we implemented, I believe, a few years ago, where the buses wouldn't just stop it, a bit further up the route than where it was, designed to stop. Making sure there's an educational effort, because we have a lot of non-choice riders, as we all know, who are working class, working middle class, and, I can speak to that experience, especially in my 20s, and I know that sometimes every nickel counts, and a lot of times people are getting on public transportation to get to that next place, to get the next dollar or so. So just making sure that we're educating our riders who are currently using our system. I know we're talking about putting a change machine down at the transit center, for instance, and I think that's a great step. But just making sure, and I know we will, but I just want to make sure that I say it aloud. Just making sure we have that educational effort, and I'm kind of curious to know what your thoughts are on that. So that's on the change card. And then I wanted to ask you, no, never mind. I like that. I just wanted to compliment you all on the seniors, making sure that as we implement that age requirement, making sure that those people who are already 60 have, until we change over in July, to know that they can still be grandfathered into the existing system. So, to the change cards.
Right. So on the change cards, one thing that staff has discussed, and I believe discussed with you as well when when this proposal was brought before you initially, was that those change cards would remain active as well, that any existing change cards in the system that had been issued up through July 29th would remain active until the end of the following fiscal year. So that June 30th of 2019, that would remain active for those to be used. We would not be issuing any further ones after the 29th. So just one comment that we have received that in regards to that is many of the riders that have come to our meetings all had stories about how the fare box, when using those, would jam and then create delays. And for the most part, they've been very positive of that's great because that's delayed me, that's held the bus up, that creates frustration for the riders as well as for the operators. But that education campaign is something that is going to have to be robust to ensure that everyone, as they board, know that they need exact change only. And so staff has already committed time to developing that messaging and how to make that very apparent should this be approved.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Well, good. Well, nice presentation. Thank you. Do I hear a motion to approve item B? All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. Next item on our agenda is ratification of claims and payroll through March 27th. If there are no questions about that, then I would have a motion to ratify. All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. Our financial reports receive our schedule of revenues and expenditures and budget to actual for the 8 months ended February 28th, and Jason had a couple brief comments on it about some of our grants.
Yeah, just a few comments on our financials. I think through 8 months of the fiscal year, we could basically sum our financials up in consistency. There's not a lot of changes from month to month, and I think that's a good thing in terms of comparing where we're at with our actual revenues and expenditures compared to budget. But just a few notes. If you want to look at page 2, this is our budget to actual for our transportation operation. So I would direct you to the total operating revenue line, and you can see that we're about $1.1 million under on revenues received versus what we had budgeted. And you can see nearly that full amount is attributed to a shortfall in federal grant revenue. And when I say shortfall, really what I mean by that is we were between grants in February. We did not seek a draw or a reimbursement on our federal grants in February, and so we did not have that revenue come in. We've since received our next grant for those purposes. In fact, I believe our overall draw in March was around $1.9 million. Now, not all of that went for maintenance reimbursement, which would be classified as operations here. But expect in March to actually see that federal grant revenue go from being negative in February to the March financial actually being over. So just to let you know that. And then also total operating expenditures, you can see we continue to remain under budget on our expenses. And then if you look at the total operating income line, even though our revenues are under budget, with our expenses being under budget as well, we still have revenues in excess of expenditures of $544,000 through 8 months of the fiscal year. On page 3, this is our parking operations, and again, pretty consistent with what we've looked at in the past several months in terms of comparing actuals to budget. Our total operating revenues continue to exceed our projection. This month we're $180,000 over what we had estimated for budgeting purposes. That's about 103% of our budget. Last month when we looked at this, we were at 102% of our budget. So again, pretty consistent. Operating expenditures, similar story. If you look at our total operating expenditures, we're about $163,000 under budget, or 95% of what we had expected. Last month we were at 94.6% of what we had expected. So very little variance there. Looking at our total operating income line, you'll notice that our revenues have exceeded our expenditures through 8 months of the fiscal year by $2.7 million. On page 4, this is our river cruise operation. And again, not a lot of change. We weren't operating regular service in February. However, I did want to direct your attention to the operating expenditures section, the ferry contract operations. If you'll recall, last month I had pointed out we were actually showing to be about $74,000 over our budget in that one particular line, and that was because we had basically got ahead on our payments to HMS for contracted ferry services. You can see that budget is now, the actuals are now back in line with budget, and we're basically right on target at 101% of what we had expected. And then for Spokies, I have no comments this morning. Be glad to answer any questions.
All right. Any questions on our financials? All right. Then I have a motion to receive our financial report. All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. Our program reports for the meeting. First is the streetcar report. And we get up and running, you won't have to give a report every meeting,
right?
will you?
I was looking back on about 14 months into giving reports every month. So it's good stuff. So we just wrapped up month 3 of the year of the streetcar. So operations-wise, Herzog and Embark are still continuing the developing of our standard operating procedures. You can see a graph there on the right that shows the progress of our SOPs. We're wrapping up our accident and incident SOPs. We're about 99% complete there. Communication and operations into the 90%. Series 100 through 400 were above 90% there. So things are going really well. We hope to have all those wrapped up by May, and then we'll move to our next phase.
Let me ask you on this report, maybe next month, could you put a copy of that in our packet so that we could have that?
You bet.
Because it'd be helpful, because somebody's always asking, how are we doing here, what are we doing, what?
Sure.
And,
Yeah, I'll provide the SOPs in a little more detail of what is in each
just,
series.
in, just that particular report.
Yeah,
All right.
absolutely.
Yeah, the report he just showed.
Yeah,
I think it'd be helpful for us to have it.
no problem. Absolutely. Okay, so we're starting to get into a bunch of our training. So this picture here is a picture of the group that performed the switch training, the manual operation of the switches. We learned how to throw the switches in the yard and also the switch out on Hudson. It's a pretty awesome group. I'll do a little roster here. So on the left there is CJ. He's kind of one of the superintendents for the construction group. He's actually the one that provided the training. We got Joel, operations manager. The next fellow there, the handsome fellow, is Eugene Fritz. He's our safety and training specialist. He's actually in our gallery here. And then Brian, he's Brookville operator. He was there to help train with the Brookville car. Patrick Daniels, maintenance manager. Carly Barnaby, general manager. David D. Paola, he's a project manager for MAPS. Wendy, she's our safety manager. And then Norm Jester, he's a VP of business development for Herzog, and myself. And then Ruben, he's a support staff for Herzog. So good group. It's good stuff. I think I skipped a slide there. This thing's crazy. Can you go back a few? Sorry. Keep going. One more. All right, so this is a picture of the actual class time that Brookville provided to allow our key managers and support staff for Herzog to, basically they get trained and then they can train the trainer and train our operators. This allows us more flexibility, so we try to maximize this class to allow us more flexibility as we start to hire operators, because each operator, as they get out on the route, they also have to have a manager in the vehicle with them, and we can only do one at a time, so the more key group that we have trained to be able to provide that training, the better off we are in the future. So each of our key managers received 40 hours of class time, and then as that progresses, we move into actual seat time, and so they'll be performing 10 hours of seat time on the non-revenue track there on Hudson. So Wendy completed her time, and then Joel just completed his time yesterday, and then Carly is starting his seat time today. And also, I believe during the reveal ceremony, we had several board members get some seat time. Not quite the same thing, but pretty similar.
10 minutes.
Yeah, 10 minutes, guys. You got a ways to go, but we can get you there. I'm scared to try it here. Okay, great. Yeah, so we had our reveal event. Chairman, like you mentioned, we had significant turnout. We were very, very thrilled. We were there about 7 o'clock in the morning getting ready to set up. The event started at 11. We had people start showing up at 9:30, so it was great. It was fun to watch the line build from 7th and Hudson, and as it started to progress, got all the way to Walker. We had started turning the corner. We had parking. We had so many people show up. We had to shift some parking down to 6th Street. It was great. I think we were set up to give out 300 T-shirts, and I think we went to those 300 T-shirts in about the first 15, 20 minutes. So we estimated we had at least 500 people, maybe more. So it was really good. It was great. This is a picture of the Embark group handing out the T-shirts. Like I said, we handed those out in about the first 15, 20 minutes. Great turnout. We had everything set up so that everyone could attend. Access through the vehicle was great. It was a fun time. Talk about mainline construction. So we're beginning to wrap up the Bricktown construction. All the OCS wires up. We're looking to turn the traction power substations hot here in the next month or so. So we're working on making sure that we get that information out to anybody that might be working along the route. We're holding with our Milestone C completion of Bricktown Loop May of 2018. Also, along the Bricktown route, if you've driven the route lately, you've noticed that the shelters are installed. They're installed without glass, and then we're also going to wrap those with cellophane so there's no chance for any kind of vandalism moving forward. But yeah, if you drive around, you'll notice that the shelters are installed, and on the back side of the shelters, there's a panel that shows what stop you're at, and then if you go to your left, which stop you'll be headed toward, or if you go to your right, which stop you'll be headed toward. So they also have the wayfind signage built in. And then we also had our information pylons delivered. They're being stored at Union Station. If you'd like to go by and take a look at them, we can make that happen. They're very, very pretty. Mainline construction for the downtown loop. So they're still up on Automobile Alley getting some of that construction wrapped up. There'll be sections that will be cordoned off but to maintain access for the downtown or the Memorial Marathon. But the Memorial Marathon will continue as planned. So they're looking to get that construction wrapped up here soon. And then they'll move over on 11th Street. They're also wrapping up pouring asphalt on 10th Street. So they're doing pretty well in the downtown loop. And the Milestone D, the substantial completion is holding for October of 2018, and then Milestone E, the final completion of all work, is holding for November of 2018. So here, this map shows the progress. We're pushing 96% of utilities clear. It'll be a huge milestone when we're 100% complete with utilities, because like anything, once you start going below ground, you get surprises. The track demo, we're 71% complete there. Track installation, 61% complete. OCS foundation, 78% complete. Station stops, 41%. Traction power substations, we've got one left to complete. We're about 83% complete there. And then last time, I mentioned that we would see more progress on the contact wire because of the contact wire going up in Bricktown. So you can see that we're at 34% complete on the overhead wire. Vehicle procurement. So we have received our first 3 vehicles. Vehicle number 4 is currently, the slide I'll show, it will show that it's being painted, but it has completed the paint job now. Vehicle number 5 is wrapping up final assembly, and then vehicle number 6 also wrapping up final assembly. We're expecting vehicle number 4 in April, and then vehicle number 5 and 6 in May, and then vehicle number 7 later in the year around August. So this is a picture of the vehicle number 1 and vehicle number 2 in the storage and maintenance facility, performing part of the commissioning test. This is to get us to substantial completion of the vehicle testing and vehicle contract. This is static testing. There's several bullet points down there just to kind of explain what all goes into the static testing. It's mostly like making sure the doors operate, the windshields work, the lights work. This is all the testing that's done before the vehicle ever makes it out on the Hudson. The next slide is the dynamic testing. This is a picture of the vehicle out on Hudson performing the dynamic testing. So what that is all the moving of the streetcar, your braking, your propulsion. And what they do is they run the streetcar up and down Hudson empty, and then they add weight to it, and then AW0 is empty car, AW2 is about a halfway full car, and then AW3 is a fully loaded car. And the way they do that, Brookville's kind of ahead of the curve here, so most streetcar systems, what they do is they load the streetcar with sandbags, right? And then whenever you're done with it, you've got all these sandbags that you have to do something with. So what Brookville did is they buy cases of water, and then whenever you're done with it, you have all these cases of water that you can actually use, and it's a little more greener. And what is cool about Brookville is they actually got it from Ozark, a made-in-Oklahoma company here with the water. So they load the vehicle down with cases of water to simulate a full vehicle as far as passenger weight, and then run it up and down the streetcar or up and down Hudson, testing the propulsion and the braking, full service brake, emergency brake, those types of things, and then also the wheel slip testing. So what that is these vehicles actually have a sanding system on them, and so the streetcar starts to take off, and the computer sense that the wheels are slipping. It'll shoot a little bit of sand down the rail to allow it to gain traction. And it also does that for braking, like if you're on wet conditions and you're on the rail and the streetcar senses that the wheels are starting to slip, it'll put sand down the rail to help it gain traction. And then this is the delivery of vehicle number 3, our clear sky blue vehicle on a clear sky blue Oklahoma day. I'm strong with the puns there, so that wraps everything up. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
All right, Jesse, thank you.
I do have a question,
Okay.
Mr. Chairman. So Jesse, I realize that the rail construction is not your responsibility anymore, but can you elaborate a little bit on what precautions are being taken for the Memorial Marathon?
Right. So between 6th and 10th, I believe, will be complete for the Memorial Marathon. Around 10th Street, which is one of the areas where the marathon actually comes back to Broadway, around 10th Street, they're going to set up water barricades, and then because there'll still be an open track slab, they'll set up water barricades around that track slab area. They'll put down metal plates with anti-skid tape on them, so that when they're crossing 10th Street, the runners will still be able to cross those metal plates and maintain their course. But they'll be crossing on metal plates, so they took extra precaution, put down the anti-skid tape.
So we'll have rails in the ground, though, not under construction anymore. Are we concerned at all about someone stepping in that, or I mean, can they catch their shoe in there?
No, we don't anticipate any problems.
Okay, all right.
Well, the police said they'd had a little trouble with their bicycles getting caught in it, so I
heard,
did
yes.
visit with them about that, so.
Yeah, and Michael would be happy to kind of speak to what I'm about to talk to about also, but we've got safety messaging for bicyclists and stuff like that we're getting ready to roll out here pretty quick. Yeah, the videos are complete.
I think in our tour of Spokies, they said those bicycle tires were bigger, and there shouldn't be a problem with those getting caught in the rails, but
When you say track installation, how do you define that it's 61%? How do you define the completed? Is it with the street?
Yeah, with the street put back, it doesn't include striping. It doesn't include any of the OCS wire or poles or anything like that. It's just embedded track in the ground with basically roadway could be opened back up.
Could be or is?
Could be.
Okay.
So it's kind of speak to that. So sometimes, there'll be a section of rail that is complete, but there might be a section in front of it or behind it that isn't complete, and so they don't necessarily open up the lanes of traffic because you would get cars that would think that it's 2 lanes, and then they'd get over into the other lane, and then they'd run back up onto another area that's closed, and then you get all these merging issues. So,
Okay, thanks.
and every week, the Herzog crew and MAPS, they all go to the traffic department. They submit their, lane closures, those types of things. They're there every week, never miss a beat, and get anything that they're about to close, they get approved by the traffic department, engineering crew.
all right. Any other questions? All right, Jesse, thank you.
All right, thanks.
Parking system report. Good morning.
Good morning, everyone. Probably won't be as fancy of a presentation as Jesse's, but I'll try. Can you work the slides for me, please? The first slide is a picture of the Helix roof at the Century Center garage. After we remove the roofing, we're actually looking at the decking. The following picture is the brand-new decking as seen. And then we have a fancy picture of brand-new roofs. Both of the roofs are done in the next picture. Never been excited about roofs before in my life, but it was a tough project. Next week, we will be closing that roof off to all vehicles so that staff can get in there and spray the fireproofing foam underneath the roof. We had a heck of a time getting the lift that's needed to operate on that unlevel surface for safety. Only one in the state, they tell me. Following slide is a picture of a sign that we have posted at all pedestrian entry and access points at the Sheridan Walker Garage while we're doing work there, just to kind of let the customers understand what's going on as there's a lot of work. The pavers outside of the water department have been installed and are being utilized. Next slide will be a reminder of some of the new LED lights in comparison to the high-pressure sodium lights. Right now, we have the LED lights up to the 4th floor. So if you come in early, it sure looks different from the exterior of the garage. Following slide is an example of our striping plan prior to starting the restriping process. The next slide will show where we've removed all of the stripes with, I think they call it shot blasting. They throw little beads of metal down and break up the paint. We've repainted the spaces in the garage for first couple of floors. The space will actually lose approximately 22 spaces in that garage as new regulations for the width of the parking spaces. The reason for the numbering, it's not assigned parking like some people have talked about. It's plain and simple an easier way for us to operate the garage and identify an area that needs to be addressed. An example would be, hey, we need to replace the light at space 4016, or we have a mess that needs to be cleaned up. That's reason for the numbering, to identify where we need to go and work.
So Corey, with the new striping, will it take out, on some of the middle floors, they would have like the compact parking that was pretty much never honored when people would park their four-wheel drive pickups there. Will that still be that way, or will it be striped consistently?
We'll still have some compact spaces, but that's more to do with the length.
Okay. Okay. That makes sense.
And we consolidated the
To leave the
compact.
drive in the center spot, is that?
Yeah, the compact spaces will all be parallel or head-end parking. They won't be angled. And there is some compact vehicles out there, but the width will still be the same.
Okay.
The numbering, Corey, how will those of us who don't know, why we put those numbers there, how will the regular, everyday, parker know that that's not, assigned 4,600, employee at Devon or, at the city or wherever?
They won't, but it's done throughout the industry without causing problems. When we have reserved parking, when somebody has a reserved parking space, there's a loud and proud sign that says it's reserved.
Okay.
I hate towing vehicles that mistakenly park in a reserved spot because it's most often an honest, true mistake. Next
Corey?
slide.
I'm sorry, Corey, can you clarify the spaces that are now compact that Craig was asking about? Will those be angled parking?
No, they'll be
still
90 degree. They'll be 90-degree
They'll
parking.
be wider.
Yeah, they'll be wider. They're shorter, is what's making them compact. Left picture is pre-paint. New picture, or the picture on the right is with the new paint on the walls, along with the new lighting. Following slide, again, is new lighting, but before we got to painting the risers and the steps. Next slide shows what the staircases will look like when we're done. That's just one of the staircases as work continues. Following slide, the International P, just a reminder that that P will go away and be replaced by what I believe to be a very nice sign. Next slide. This is our public parking sign in its shop. We were hoping to have it installed prior to today's meeting, but we got hit with wind. And that sign's approximately just under 30 feet tall. So our message will be out there when it's installed.
Is that going to be on all our garages or just?
Just this garage right now, but we did, assuming budget passes, hoping to complete that on all of our garages next fiscal year. And then the last sign, customer service signs. We have all of these signs posted throughout the Arts District garage and have already started posting these signs throughout the other garages. Plain and simple, trying to communicate to the customers that we provide these services and we're there for them. Quick note about the Arts Festival that's coming up. As we know, Sheridan Walker Garage is under construction, so we moved a little over 300 city employees into the Arts District Garage so we could have space to work. Arts District is a popular event, or Arts Festival is a popular event. We've paused the construction project at the Sheridan Walker Garage during that week, so that those parking spaces that we have in there will be available to the public for the event. And there's also a safety issue, or a safety concern, I should say, about men and individuals working on ladders when we have that increased vehicle traffic. Any questions?
That'd be an issue for the new mayor, just to let all the employees off that week, and then there wouldn't be any parking problems.
Some of the employees love being down here that week
Oh, okay.
because the Arts Festival is here.
All right. Any questions? All right, thank you. And our last is our river cruises and Spokies report.
Good morning.
Morning.
We have completed the move to the intermodal transportation hub at Santa Fe Depot. The picture on the left is the entrance to Oklahoma River Cruises, and on the right is the new entrance to Spokies. Spokies is down in the plaza area. The River Cruises are in the main building there. Wrong way. Okay. So our schedule this year is very similar to last year. The only significant change is the elimination of evening ferry service, which I'll explain in a moment. We do have on ferry service, we have Bike and Ride, where you can bring your bicycle on board. We have the 11th year for History Comes Alive with historical reenactors from the Oklahoma History Center. And in October, we will again have Kids Haunt the River. So instead of having evening ferry service, our operator, HMS Ferries, for years has been receiving requests from people saying, do you give a river tour, a tour of the development of the river and activities on the river, which of course we've been doing on ferry service since the beginning it began. To clarify it, we now have a river tour, a narrated tour. It's in the evenings so that people can know what to expect when they come down. It does cost a little more, and we do have onboard concessions just like we do on ferry service. And then we will again have the cocktail cruise June through September, very popular event. This year, instead of being on regular ferry service, it'll be in the evenings, and there will be a slight increase in the cost. This is comparable to the Sunset Cruise. It won't cost as much. There won't be any appetizers, but there will be the barring and some food concessions available. So we think we can, again, sell that through as we did Sunset Cruises and our evening ferry service. Our specialty cruises, a few years ago we did a Mother's Day dessert cruise. It was very popular. We're doing that again this year on May 13th. It'll have some bite-sized desserts and mimosas, and we've already sold some tickets for that one. That'll be on May 13th. On Father's Day, we'll do a similar thing on Father's Day. And of course, October is always Haunt the River month, and that's always a very popular event. On March 13th, a tabletop exercise on emergency response involving Oklahoma River Cruises was held. In attendance were the Oklahoma City Police, Fire, Public Works, River Maintenance, Stormwater Quality Departments, and EMSA. The exercise was coordinated by the OKC Emergency Management and facilitated by Jerry Loitka. He is an HMS Ferries captain. He is also a retired Midwest City Fire Marshal, and he works for the Oklahoma County Emergency Management. The exercise was requested by HMS Oklahoma as part of their safety management system development. It was successful in improving awareness among the city departments about how we operate on the river and some of the challenges to actually performing a emergency response on the river. And a follow-up visit aboard a river cruiser is in development. The exercise was simulating a fire on board with 20 children and 10 adults some in wheelchairs, so it was a very challenging exercise, and it really brought to the attention of the police and fire rescue the challenges. For example, they thought they could just pull up a Zodiac and offboard people, and we explained to them it's almost 3 feet from the deck to the water. Really elicited some great discussion on how to perform a rescue, and some plans were developed. For Spokies, March weather was significantly better than February. We had about 3 times as much rain in February, which is unusual, than we did in March. So we had a really strong ridership in March. I think people were anxious to get back out on their bicycles. Spokies celebrated some holidays. On the right there, we have the Valentine's Day bike, which was out in February. And then we had a couple of St. Patrick's Day bikes out for the weekend of St. Patrick's Day. Interestingly enough, Josh Schwott, the general manager, said when people came to check out a bike, if one of those bikes was there, that was the bike they would choose. So we got a lot of ridership, and we're planning, looking at some other ways we can help promote people to ride our bikes. Some of the activities coming up for Spokies, we had Schmooza Palooza last evening. It was a great networking event, met a lot of businesses, talked to them about some corporate activities, talked to them about memberships. Once again, we had a turn the bike tire, spin the wheel activity, and gave away some free passes for people to try out the system. Open Streets on April 8th, coming up pretty soon here, live on the plaza. We did this last year. Josh and John did some bike repairs and did some activities to help promote the system. And then Opt Outside Oklahoma. There's a new bike rental service, bike tour service coming. It's called Ride OKC, and Josh has been working with Ryan Fogel with that service. They'll be doing some how to ride a bike classes for people who haven't ridden a bike, like me, for about 40 years. Once again, we'll be providing bikes at a discount for the Full Moon Bike Ride. And we, of course, will be celebrating Bike to Work Month and Bike to Work Day on May 18th. One other thing I wanted to mention today, in in about an hour and 40 minutes, ferry service begins for the season. So if you have nothing to do this afternoon, you might jump on a boat and take a ride. We are still working with ODOT on our TAP grant to expand our service, our Spokie service, adding 3 new bike share stations. Wheels move a little slowly at ODOT, but we are progressing and hope to have those in before the end of the summer. And with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
There was an article in the paper not long ago, somebody else bringing in bikes for something, and I didn't understand that. Did you?
Well, that might be the Ride OKC program. Ryan Fogel, he's going to do bicycle tours. He has a variety of sizes of bikes. He's got child size, and ours only go from about 5 foot to 6'2". So unless you're in that height range, which fortunately most of us are, you can ride our bikes. But he's going to have a variety of sizes, and he'll be doing bicycle tours in Oklahoma City. So we're very excited to see more bicycles on the road. Hopefully, push the bicycle safety efforts of the planning department that I know they're working very hard on.
Thank you. Any questions? Thank you. I would have a motion to receive our program reports.
So moved.
All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. All right. Any items from trustees? Kay? Barney? Jason? This is a first. The administrator had nothing to say. All right. Then we are adjourned. Thank you.